Hello and good afternoon. Thank you to everyone for joining on this amazing webinar. On behalf of FICCI Arise, I welcome you to the third edition of the FICCI Arise Cambridge University Press webinar series, Schools Post-Lockdown, What, Why, and How. On the onset, I'd like to thank Cambridge University Press for collaborating with us on this very pertinent topic. Established in 1927 under the guidance of Sri Mahatma Gandhi, FICCI is an apex chamber which represents the interests of the Indian industry and trade. With more than 250,000 members from the public and private sectors, it hosts 84 expert committees and task forces representing 65 core sectors of the economy. It mobilizes consensus amongst various stakeholders for advocacy of policy regulatory issues and sharing of best practices. It has been active for over a decade in various verticals of education and is the first non-governmental organization to suggest research-based policy reforms to the government. With the manifold growth of self-financed independent schools in India, which today caters to over 43% of the school-going children, a need arose for public advocacy as well as defining norms and standards for this sector, and FICCI Arise came into existence about 4 years ago. It has since then, with its motto of Students First, been actively engaged with central and state government authorities to improve the standards and reach of education in India. I'm happy to share that FICCI is developing a scientific structure for conducting a detailed institutional readiness audit, which will cover all 4 aspects of an academic institution: administrative, academic, non-academic, and residential. Detailed indicators and rubrics have been developed to cover all these aspects, the launch of which is expected next month itself. This pandemic that we find ourselves in now has led us to reinvent a new normal for education. It's time for us all to reboot and retool ourselves, whether it's teachers, students, parents, and everyone else associated with schooling. As per UNESCO's estimates, over 90% students worldwide are presently out of school, which represents a little over 1.54 billion children who are part of the ecosystem. Teachers have undoubtedly emerged as our corona heroes, and we have all learned and accepted that virtual learning is not the complete solution. We must focus on returning to schools. Now, we are all asking ourselves, what are the opportunities in these times? And I'll just quote the words of President John F. Kennedy, and I quote, "The Chinese use 2 brushstrokes to write the word crisis. One brushstroke stands for danger, the other for opportunity. In a crisis, be aware of the danger, but recognize the opportunity," unquote. I feel there are numerous opportunities are definitely going to emerge, which of course, none of you are alien to. Just to name a few: upskilling teachers to adopt to new technologies, using blended learning on an ongoing basis in our classrooms, remediation classes that can now be held from home, collaboration of students on projects like never thought before, virtual guest lectures for students from leading academicians from any part of the world. The list is simply endless. Friends, through this webinar today, we aim to bring together stalwarts in education from India to discuss the what, the why, and the how of schools post-lockdown. With this, I would like to take the opportunity to formally welcome our esteemed panelists for the day. Ms. Preeti Hingorani, Vice President, Brand and Public Relations, Cambridge University Press. Ms. Kavita Sangvi, Principal, SVKM CNM School, Mumbai, and member of Cambridge panel. Dr. Swati Popat-Vats, President of Podar Education Network and President of Early Childhood Association of India. Ms. Rabina Singh, Cambridge International Coordinator from the Shri Ram School, New Delhi. Ms. Sonia Mavani, Head of Primary School, Shiv Nadar School, Noida. And the session, of course, is going to be moderated by none other than Dr. Ashok Pandey, Director of Alcon Group of Schools and a member of FICCI Rise. Dr. Pandey, I would request you to please take over the session as the moderator.
Thank you, Vedant, for your brilliant introduction and giving us all a lot of emotions and energy to go ahead. Before I get into my very distinguished panelists, I will request Preeti Hingorani, the Vice President, Cambridge University Press. She manages brand and PR. But before Preeti, you come in, permit me for a minute to record my appreciation for the Cambridge University Press. particularly for the reason that you have invested a lot in research and development, in teacher training, leadership development. As a teacher all my life, Preeti, I think teachers are the fulcrum. They pivot the entire teaching learning process, and any amount of investment in them, in their capacity building and well-being is not enough. You have done it relentlessly, and I'm absolutely thrilled to know that. Therefore, I bring you in to throw some light, insight, and also let us know what is in for a change. Preeti, over to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for the kind words. They really mean a lot to us as Cambridge. I certainly am honored to be with you and our esteemed panel today. Thank you, Vedant, for being around from FICCI Arise. We really have a lot of sincere gratitude for all the good work that FICCI Arise has done and bring this discussion to life. At Cambridge, so as you said, we do talk about a lot of evidence. A vast amount of educational research says that the quality of the individual teacher is one of the most significant factors that influences how much progress students make in school. So I think all the teachers who are here today gracing the occasion, it's a very good reason for you to give yourself a pat on the back. Cambridge has a long history of training and developing teachers through courses, qualification, and a variety of support that we offer to our teachers across the world so that they fully understand and can implement any curriculum that they choose, and they are successfully able to make the best use of every resource that is made available to them in the classroom. Allow me the opportunity to echo the words of our management that within K-12 education, we have made a very clear choice, chosen to focus on the central and the critical role of the teacher. Because when we work closely with teachers, it leads to better learning and better outcomes for the student. We do this by identifying what currently works well. And today we are at a point where things are changing and we need to figure out what currently works well. Training and support for teachers is, of course, very important to factor in what's happening in today's times, what's the new reality that will dominate the future of education. The big question many of us are asking is, how much of this new world is here to stay in education? Well, let research play that role, and I'm sure that we'll find more answers in the coming months. But what is certainly evident is with the new techniques that have been adopted by teachers, there is certainly, it's producing some lasting changes in education. And school leaders are noting a change in the mindset of teachers, not only in the ability to learn new technologies and skills, but to look at a different approach to thinking about teaching itself, which is very interesting. It is evident that the educational environment will make better use of online education. We will develop better partnerships with the parents and have flexibilities in the system to offer better assessments and education. As a result, bringing in resilient and sustainable schools, which will enable children to get the high quality education, which will be so essential for them and for our future as well. Today, as I sit with you, I represent an organization that is 486 years old, part of a university that is more than 800 years old. As Cambridge, you would definitely see us in history, and I'm proud to say that yes, in history, but always with a mention of our work defining the future. Today's discussion with practicing teachers, experts like yourself, and all the teachers who have joined in is a defining moment. Certainly, one of the most defining moments which we will be looking back in history of education and tracing some changes at that time to the COVID-19 generation of teachers and what they achieved. With all due respect, this is a moment that I'm really looking forward to. So I look forward for your inputs and moderating the panel today. We had some great experts and we're looking to these insights. Thank you.
Thank you, Preeti. I'm absolutely overwhelmed by all that you have said about the teachers particularly. You come from a very, very historical legacy. FICCI comes with a great legacy. And in between FICCI Arise comes with a lot of energy, hope and optimism of youth. And I have got four very, very distinguished panelists. And therefore, my job is very easy. But I'm very delighted, very privileged to open up the forum for my speakers with a very, very small introduction. You see, in the light of all that Vedant and you have said, we are going to open. Oh, really? Are we going to open? We are not going to open. You see, that is the kind of dilemma that we have. Are we going to teach in person? Oh, really? No, it is going to be online. So that is another dilemma. Now, when we meet these young children, how do we meet them? How do we greet them? How do we treat them? And how do we answer to some of the brilliant questions that they have accumulated over the past 2 to 3 months? You know, these are some of the dilemmas that we are going to face. Some of the countries have already reopened. South Korea has reopened. New Zealand has reopened. Japan has reopened. But they have their celebration is not 100%. It is muted. It is unmuted like we are doing on Zoom. So I think within this dilemma and how we manage this dilemma and how we go forward from the crisis management that we did heroically, as Preeti said, in the past 2 months, how do we develop the skills? How do we develop expertise to be a master of managing a distance education plus in-person education? I think for that, this discussion is meant. And without wasting time, I'll invite Dr. Swati Popat-Butt. So Swati, I have heard her, seen her. She stirs audience, she stuns them, and she stimulates them. I'm sure she's going to bring a lot of perspective, which is going to stimulate thousands of viewers hooked to this program. Over to you, Swati.
So thank you so much, Ashok ji, and I hope I stir, stun, and stimulate. And I think there are some things that will shock also, because it's very important for us to understand that when we talk about schools opening, I represent the preschools. I represent the littlest citizens of our country. And I represent both K-12, where the preschool is part of the high school, and where preschool is like a standalone as a private preschool. You know, we have a phrase that children are our future. Well, that's true, but there is a fundamental problem with that idea. It suggests that they are kids now, and later, when they become the future, we can start taking care of them with colleges and universities and schools, a better economy, a better job climate. But that's wrong, because our future right now is in the homes, not having any access to socio-emotional development or thinking skills development, because they're cooped up at home. The under 10s are going to be the last to be allowed to come out. So till then, they are cooped up at home with their parents, with the same faces every day. And it's becoming a kind of a toll both on the parents and the child. If you see the research, the amount of child abuse has increased, not only in the poor sections, but everywhere in the world. So it's because children are at home with nothing to do, with no stimulation. And why is stimulation important right now? It's the first 5 years. Children go through a period of rapid learning in the first 5 years. The most embedded parts of our personality, our attitudes, our moral values, our emotional resilience, our emotional tendencies, our learning abilities, how we deal with people, how we deal with situations, good, bad, they are all a product of the experience that children will get now, in the early years, in this lockdown, in this being cooped up at home. And that is where nobody is giving attention to. We are having a lot of people, counselors, sometimes psychiatrists, criticizing the blended method that many preschools have started so that they can have a connect with the children. And I love the quote that Mr. Khaitan said at the beginning, that with danger, you also have to look at opportunities. And we strongly urge as an association to all these people who criticize the blended learning format, that if you feel that there is something that's going to harm the children, please give us the solutions. Don't just give blanket comments about their harms, because even WHO says 1 hour of interactive video chats is not bad for children as long as it is interactive. So what I see, what our association, Early Childhood Association, sees is a concept called CBC. Click, brick, click. That's what's going to happen as we start opening up schools or preschools. We are presently following blended learning in all preschools. ECA has come out with a document, developmentally appropriate practice for blended learning. We've also come out with guidelines for reopening preschools safely, so that we're giving enough time for the preschools to reopen. But it's very, very important that state ministers need to understand the importance of the early years and not scare parents that blended learning is bad for children, it's this, it's that, etc. We've done enough of research. We found out the best way that schools can do blended learning with these children. And two things, opening of preschools hinges on two things. Number one, parents feel we won't send the child till the vaccine is not there. And number two, if you take the example of Singapore tested all their teachers before sending them into the schools. So which means, do we have enough of testing available to calm down the parents, to reassure them, to help them understand that things are safe? So when it comes to the very littlest citizens, it is going to be a tough challenge to reopen the schools, to ensure, because they thrive on touch. So what social distancing are we talking about? It's very difficult to keep them away from each other. It's very difficult for them not to share their toys. So a lot of these kind of things have to be thought about, planned, and then implemented. So it will take the preschools the longest time to open. But I am quite positive that it's the daycares that will open first. And then when the parents see the daycares being safe for the children, then slowly the preschools would start opening. Why I say the daycares will open first is because parents will start going back to their jobs. Government has now allowed 10% of the total staff to attend. Very soon it will be 30% and then 50%, which means parents will need to put their children in some form of care while they are at work. So it will be the daycares that will start opening. We are working with daycare chains to help them understand what are the kind of precautions that they should be taking. But it's very, very important for us to understand that when we talk about preschools and we talk about the youngest citizens, it is important that this age group right now at home has access to a flexible, multifaceted, multi-level, play-based, activity-based, discovery-based education. And that can only happen if it is done in 3 parts. Teacher-child interaction, like a video chat happening for 45 minutes or 60 minutes every day. Parent-child interaction activities given by the school so that they are age appropriate and developmentally appropriate. And the school giving certain activities to the child where the child feels independent in doing those activities on their own. Because autonomy is one of the most important developmental milestones that children's emotional development needs at this stage. So it's very, very important that click, brick, click, because we will reopen, and having studied all the different countries, schools have shut down because sometimes teachers get the virus, or sometimes a child gets it, and that's why everybody has to be put on quarantine. So it is the best option right now for preschools to follow, start the blended learning. As soon as preschools open, ensure safety and security, and then you will have to go back on the blended format. So click, brick, click is what is going to happen.
Absolutely. I fully agree with you, Dr. Swati, and what you have highlighted basically is the sensitivity, the empathy with which we welcome the children. And in fact, one very important point that you raised, that we actually had to make a balance. The children coming to a school to complete their learning, their health concerns, and of course, parents going back to work because the economy wheel also has to keep running. I think that is another absolutely difficult dilemma. Thank you very much for these points that you have raised. And I'm certainly stirred and stimulated. I can assure you about that. Thank you, Dr. Swati. I now have Ms. Ravina Singh, who is Cambridge International Coordinator in Shri Ram School, New Delhi. Ravina combines in her both classroom practices, administration and coordination. Ravina, could you please share some of the pioneering practices and your international experiences, right, which can bring benefit to the viewers? Ravina, over to you. Yeah, Ravina, unmute yourself, please.
It is, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Pandey, and big thank you to FICCI Arise and Cambridge University Press as well for this opportunity. I'm just picking up the threads from what Mr. Khetan said, followed by what Dr. Swati said. Mr. Khetan mentioned teachers as coronavirus warriors. I think they are multitasking corona warriors. Teachers have taken multitasking to a whole new level. What we have seen in our online classes, how they've managed the home and the school front beautifully to keep classes going on in an uninterrupted manner. Secondly, I love the phrase, the click, brick, click. But what has happened for us and which has worked well over the past 2 months is click, break, click. So, you have your online classes, you give a 15 or 10-minute break between classes for children, which is needed, and they have enjoyed it and liked it and managed to, continue with their teaching till the end of the day. So my talk today about sharing good practices is what I am seeing over the years as a teacher and also as the Cambridge coordinator. And I'm dividing it into 3 parts, basically. The good practices, which I have seen at the school management level, which I have seen at my class teacher and my teacher colleague level, and then, of course, at the Cambridge level, a very robust curriculum that we are following. So, for us to be able to function the way we do, support in any and every form is welcome, and it's what I have seen is the kind of policies that our school has given us. For example, the teachers had laptops. Before that, I'd like to mention that this particular phase for us, we hit the ground running because not so happy occasion of the pollution breaks we had, the year before, because of which our online system was already in place. So teachers were, on their spring break, and this lockdown happened, and we never got a chance to go back to school. But then again, our timetables, our orientations, our PTM happened the day we had planned. And the policy is, like I said, at the school management level. So our school management has been a little ahead of the curve there, so to say, that we had this practice already with us. Then also, I'd like to say that the laptop being there with every teacher, our medical facilities that are there at the back of the mind, no question of a pay cut, even during these distress times, even all these things at some level spur the teacher to do well going forward in their class. Then I come to the classroom level, where I'm dividing it into the educational side and the emotional side. The practices that I have seen which have worked very well, of course, at the educational level, being the Cambridge curriculum that we follow, which is a very robust curriculum. And, over time, I have seen that the expectations of quality are high, but at the same time, the pressure not so much, which again helps the teacher and the student flower and prosper, you know. So you're doing well, yet you have the freedom, yet you have the flexibility to turn the course the way you want to, and of course adapt to the times as be the case. Secondly, for teachers also, despite having online classes, see the practices I'm sharing, maybe other schools are doing it too, but then again, if they aren't, it's again food for thought. So I'm hoping it'll help. The correction, the extra classes we got, you know, with students. Teachers are doing, extra hours for this to, help children in need. Now moving on to the emotional part, very, very, very important. And I go back to another thing I heard in Dr. Swati's talk was the virtual touch. The virtual touch as much as the contact time as we can give children, because at the end of the day, after their families, we are the second line. Their friends and teachers are their second line of contact and their emotional stability, you know. So looking at that, I feel the class teacher time every day for us started with the class teacher hour. So whether we go back to school physically or whether we continue classes in an online manner, class teacher time is irreplaceable. And within that class teacher time, the teachers, it's a one spot connection point where they're getting to know who's well, who's not, what talents are on display, maybe a music band, maybe mindfulness, maybe meditation. I have seen all these happen in our classes and being much appreciated by children and parents, you know, because they get a forum of release, so to say. And another thing that I've seen are orientations. See, you're not physically able to meet, the parents are worried, children are worried. So the orientations, hand holding, whatever we can do through meetings, you know. Even when schools, when they say what is most important, I saw that in the Q&A come up a while ago. How do we deal with children when they come back to school? What will be? Yeah, I'm going to wrap up now.
Ravina, I think you conclude. Later on, we'll take your other points. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Pandey.
Yeah. Thank you, Ravina. I think your thoughts are flowing like a fresh river stream. And I'm sorry I had to intervene because I don't want viewers to know everything you have to say in one go only. But I really like the idea of this flexibility and autonomy for the teachers. I also believe that Cambridge International has prepared teachers, and you have invested a lot during peacetime. You have sweated, and maybe you saved a lot of blood during the wartime, it appears. And that is a lesson that all of us have to learn, right? I will quickly now move on to my another panelist, Kavita Sanghvi. She's principal of SVKM CNM School, Mumbai. And I must tell the viewers, you must be knowing Global Teachers Award. She was nominated among the first 50, a brilliant, celebrated teacher. And she will come with a perspective of both a teacher and also an administrator, the leadership issues, and how to take forward this almost hybrid kind of situation that put ourselves in. So Kavita, you please take us through.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Pandey. And thank you, FICCI Arise and Cambridge University Press. So let me talk to you now that you've heard the pre-primary and the primary. Well, let's talk about the secondary students also walking in. And when they walk in, they're used to the blended learning. They're used to online things. Can you now tell them, don't use your laptop, don't use your mobile phones? No, you can't. You will have to rechange your learning, reform your learning to make sure that you accommodate all of this. And that is why some policy changes will also have to happen. Now, what kind of teaching is happening right now? Most of you are giving projects, activities. Your assessment is happening through Google Forms, Microsoft Forms, Kahoot. Now, when you come back to class and you ask them again a paper and pen, are they going to accept it? No, they're going to question you. So again, you're going to change your assessment pattern. You're going to be making your academics, again, not content-based, but research-based, skill-based. So there's going to be a change in pedagogy. There's going to be a change in assessments. There's going to be a change in how you're going to interact with your children, because the secondary students are going to be very, very vocal about all those things. And that's why You can say, let's go back, the entire class is seated and I'm going to have a teacher-centered class. Or maybe if you have a child-centered class, you will now have to have a lot of different kind of interactions with them. So this is what you need to prepare as a teacher and as a head also. But as a teacher, to coming back to this, what kind of support can you give your students? You need to be trained. And you have been doing a fantastic job up till now. Hats off to all of you all. In the crisis management, you pulled up your socks and you went on and did all your training. But now, reflect before that. All our training up to now has been myopic, has been need-based, has been something where we did, or maybe there's been a disconnect. But what kind of training do we actually have to do in the future? So I would like to share my screen right now. If you can share the screen of slide 2, please. So first of all, if you have to go in for training, which is very, very important, then this is the distance learning solutions as per UNESCO. You have to make sure that you've got psychological support. You have to go into these guides, go through the guides as to what support are you going to offer your students. Digital learning. There are so many platforms. You have been basically using them from all the research that I've been doing a lot. Google Classrooms or Microsoft Teams or maybe Edmodo. Just go and see the other platforms also. You never know which might suit your entire scenes. There are a lot of massive open online courses, a lot of MOOC courses to keep on brushing yourself time and again to keep up to your students, because this 3 months, your students have been using internet profusely. So they have definitely gathered a lot of knowledge. So you have to make sure that you are also upgrading this knowledge to meet up to their expectations. Next slide, please. More support is self-directed learning content. You want to take on a couple of things like the edX courses, all these courses self-directed. I want to grow further and further. What are the collaboration platforms that I can do with my students to have live video communication? Right now, what we are having right now with you, what are the collaborative platforms? Mobile reading platforms, applications. Now you cannot have just that they go to a library and collect a book. No, the reading program will happen online. So what are the mobile reading applications? What are the tools for teachers to create digital learning content? All of this, all of the links are available on UNESCO. I would appreciate all the teachers to go into it. So next slide, please. So where across previously, where are all our trainings were happening about few hours a time? Let me share you with some countries. South Korea is mandatory that they have 90 hours of training every year. Countries which are connected with OECD, they say they have to have 130 hours of training every year. Now we need to review our training, our blended learning also, and research and analyze the need that is required from time to time. Plan accordingly just so that a student's learning is happening every now and then. We're right now in the first wave. We might have a second wave, a third wave. We might have to close down again when we start again. You never know the future. So we need to start planning for the future. Execute, monitor, and keep on assessing ourselves and our students. So thank you. This is the path forward and hope to help you further. Thank you.
Thank you, Kavita. How succinct you were. And I must admire you. You have given a minute extra to the program, and I appreciate it.
Thank
and
you.
while you were presenting, I was also reminded of a saying that your plan may be useless, but your planning is indispensable. And therefore, I think all the leaders and teachers, they have to engage in planning for all the cascading dilemmas as we are going to face and uncertainties. And teacher preparedness, your focus, I really appreciate it. And I'm sure the viewers have taken a note of it. The resources that you have shared, I think it is extremely useful. Thank you, Kavita.
Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have heard these fresh perspectives from 3 of our panelists. And now I'm moving to someone who is dealing with primary school children. And I have a special love for those children because they are very energetic, very innocent, very impressionable. And I think managing the masks and social distancing will perhaps be most difficult in that age group. Sonia is going to take us through as to how she plans to manage and respond to the needs of these children. Sonia, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Pandey. I think the panelists before me have beautifully put across their articulation of what and why of the coming back to the classrooms and what that will look like. I'd like to draw your attention to the how, or the process that will make this more as a smooth transition from the virtual to the physical space. Smooth is very relative in these terms because there is no precedent to say that we know that what should happen. I would just like to share some of my thoughts and reflections based on my conversations with other educators that I've had. So if somebody can help me with those slides, I'd like to draw your attention to the fact of the learning community, as we say. The next slide, please. Because what's going to make an impact is how this learning community's mental makeup is at this stage. And what I mean by learning community are the key stakeholders in a school, which is the parent, teacher, and the child. So these stakeholders and their readiness will depend a lot on what the school keeps ready. Like I think Ms. Sanghvi mentioned about, having a few norms of do's and don'ts for them. So just like when we had our connected learning program, when it began, we had a handbook for each stakeholder to say what are the do's and don'ts. And similarly, at this point, when we're ready to come back to school, whenever it happens, and if and when it happens, we need to have a similar set of norms for these set of stakeholders. And the communication amongst this community and the collaboration will be the key when we come back. I've known that many schools have a response team in place. What I mean by response team is people who already have started discussing and talking about, so what would it mean to have children back to school? The safety and security requirement, the logistical arrangements to be made, the tech teams to be prepared. So while this response team is in place and they're looking after a whole lot of areas, I've also heard of an example where some schools have started drawing up an agreement between for the parent to sign before the child comes to school. So because there's a whole liability issue in case a case is detected, what do we do? So all of these arrangements are put in place. But once the response team has its draft 1 and 2 ready, I would really encourage the community to involve parent and students' voice as well, because that will give us a 360-degree view of how to put a plan in place. It is also a very good opportunity for student leadership here, because I'm sure the council members, the student council members would love to share their thoughts on what's happening. In response to design of learning, which we've talked about, and Ms. Sanghvi very clearly explained that it's not going to be the same anymore with a whole lot of technology that has come in. There is a hybrid version which Dr. Pandey, you mentioned. So one model you can look at is that we can have this hybrid model where we can have 25 to 30% of students in the school, whereas the 75% are at home, and there are live streaming of classes happening. Of course, it will call for some financial factors, and all those need to be taken into consideration. I will also share one more example, which I've heard from International School of Geneva. So there what they have is they have children coming in small cohorts of 15, 16, but they all come through a single channel and they are confined in a particular pod or a certain area. So what happens is throughout the day, they have a routine, which is an isolated routine. They're learning, their bio breaks, their meal times, everything is happening in a confined area. So that even if a case comes up, this cohort is quarantined and not the entire school. So these are various designs that one can look at when we talk of teaching and learning. Also, when we're talking of learning, one idea that we have is the connection between the teacher and the child is the key, as well as the fact that the learning needs to continue, whether it's online at home or when we talk of physically coming back to school. Recently, I heard Ms. Anita Karwal, who is the CBSE chairperson, mention that the focus during these times should be on learning and not on testing. So with that, I feel that whatever tweaks that we are making in our curriculum plans now have to be very clearly and openly communicated with the parent community so that everybody is on the same page.
Yeah.
If we
Thank
move
you.
on, sorry, one more point I have.
Yeah,
If you
yeah,
allow me.
please. Yeah.
If we move on to the next slide, it talks about the socio-emotional well-being, which I think Dr. Popat also mentioned. Is, you know, we have to understand that when this community comes back, they will come back with some anxiety, each of them, because some members would have experienced deaths in close quarters. Some families are going through financial crisis. There may be family members who have ailments. So how do we look at this whole, the whole scenario as a community? I feel during these times, it's important for a school to come across as a social institution and not just a center of learning at this point. And I know of cases where some staff members have gone ahead and contributed voluntarily their salary of 1 or 2 days of salary just so that they can take care of the support staff who were not on rolls and had to take a pay cut. So these are some examples of how we can come together as a community and hold ourselves during these times. And the last mantra that has really worked for us during these times is start small and less is more. Let's take baby steps. And finally, I would like to leave you with the last slide, which is on a lighter note. Somebody has expressed their understanding of what the schools will look like post the lockdown. So with that, I end. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Sonia. I really appreciate. You have also answered some of the questions that I'm getting around assessment and how to manage hybrid. So those viewers must be satisfied. But essentially, what you said, I just want to highlight those points because it is very important, in my opinion, for the viewers. Is connectivity is very, very important. Now, assessment with some sensibility and empathy is important, if at all. That is very, very essential. And you talked about a response team. I think that is a very, very valid point. And I think if we really have to manage things, probably the leaders will have to be a little distributive in nature, and they have to put response teams. Somebody has to manage the resources, somebody has to manage the operations, somebody has to manage the communication, somebody has to be the think tank, and that is how this whole thing can be managed. So now, thank you very much for your what we have named as uninterrupted presentations that you have made. And now I have millions of questions before me, and I'm absolutely bogged down as to which question to take, which not to take. But I will try and do justice as much I can. In between, I will also request those who are on Facebook or FICCI Arise or on any other medium outside Zoom, they must also raise their questions in the comment box, please. We will try and accommodate them as well. Swati, you were smiling, and therefore I have a question for you. And this question is from Ananya Bhattacharya. I'm sorry for my wrong pronunciation. And the question is, in the pre-primary and primary level children, they get glued to the screen, and how to manage that excessive gluing to the screen. And we have to do online classes as well. I think that is the concern of that person. So what is your advice, Dr. Swati?
So basically, when we talk about screens, ideally it's the family who first gets children addicted to screens, because if the child doesn't eat, you put a screen in front of the child. If the child is throwing a tantrum, you put a screen in front of the child. So this is where the Early Childhood Association has also developed a lot of material to help parents understand that there is not a problem with screen time. The problem is more with content time. So even if you read the American Academy of Pediatricians disclaimer about screen time, children below the age of 2 years should not be exposed to screens except maybe video chatting with their grandparents, etc. Number two, please have a kind of a chart of your child's daily screen exposure and try to identify how much of that was good content and required and how much of that was bad content and not required. And it's very, very important for children to understand from their parents or from their immediate family that there are some firm rules about watching and viewing screen. And there is always a designated time in the day or a program in the day. If you are going to give a free hand to children just to watch screens, then that's not going to work. So technology literacy is the need of the hour now, especially since now click is going to become the way forward where schooling is concerned. So I would urge all schools, whether early years, primary, secondary, to please include a topic called technology literacy, which means it teaches children what is bad in screens, what is good in screens, how to use screens, what is the distance I should use, for how long should I sit in front of a screen, what should I do? Like for young children, 20 minutes at a time is good time. And then you need to have a brain break or an energizer, some physical activity, so that their eyes are not strained. So if all these little pointers are kept in mind, screen time can definitely become beneficial and not become harmful for children.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Swati. How refreshing it is to listen to your very detailed analysis of the problem. Ravina, Ravina, don't smile. There is a question for you.
Yes.
The question is, Ravina, you are Cambridge International, so you have many schools abroad, your counterparts. Do you have any fresh perspectives from them as to how they are managing, and if that one or two tips you can share with the viewers here?
Okay. I have coincidentally, I have friends who are teaching, but I have my own sister who settled abroad. So I have my nephew going to class 3 in Singapore. It was one of the leading schools of Singapore. And for them, before the summer break, they've started. So it's every alternate day. I'm talking from first-hand experience here. And when I took feedback from him and my sister, what works well from a, the perspective from a school, she said transparency. Transparency is key. That if there is an issue, please flag it. If there is, it's okay if somebody is falling sick or whatever, but let the parents know immediately so that, so transparency is key, and surprisingly, a sense of humor. That's important. So without taking the name of the school, I can mention, so the children of class 3 went back to class, and some of the teachers had t-shirts with their faces printed on it and said, "Remember me." So it was nice. It helps children. Nothing works like a smile and sense of humor. Sometimes in all this doom and gloom.
Absolutely. So that is how we connect with the children. Yeah, you are absolutely right. You see, absolutely. Kavita, you mentioned about assessment, and I'm getting a lot of questions. Jaspreet Kaur and many people, they are saying that, look, if we go for online teaching alone, will we be really able to train and prepare the children for real summative big examination?
Yes, we can, because there are lots of tools which you can use across. So recently I had done an assessment training for my own staff. And when you use Google Forms, you have a choice of having subjective, objective, all those kind of questions. So you are training those students across for that. Also, when you have creative writing, call as essays and all that, it all adds to it. In fact, I can, if given a chance, if I just put in a link right now, and if I ask you to just put in one word, then I will have a word cloud. And that itself also is an assessment. So assessments definitely can be a different way. And I'm just putting right now, Mr. Pandey, a Mentimeter link also in the chat box. And you will have a word cloud coming out as soon as the people put in their words. And that is assessment. Assessment can be of different forms.
Yeah, fine. So I hope your answer has satisfied the person. I think Jaspreet Kaur. Sonia, I have a question for you. You mentioned about this cognitive and socio-emotional skills. Can you give any, to do things to manage the children socially and emotionally? And when they come back to a school and teachers meet them, what should be the first few days of interaction dominated by?
Very relevant question. I think when they come back to school, and these are all designs that have been talked about, it shouldn't really just be focusing only on academic goals. And one design could be that, you could have children continue with their online classes at home for 3 days in a week and come to school only twice in a week, or maybe even once a week. But the times when they are in school, let them do things which they are not otherwise doing at home. So obviously, if you only have 25% of children in school, so there will be scope for non-contact sports, and they will get opportunity to run around on if you can just have a group of 30 children run around on a huge field playing badminton. But it's more about sharing where they are. Children have come up with a lot of expressions of the drawing, coloring. I think all those should be put up in the classroom for them to feel a sense of belonging, because now they're coming back and the school doesn't look the same anymore, empty corridors. And I think what even our teachers continuously are doing, even online, is this regular circle time where children are given lots of opportunities to express how they are feeling during these times. I think that's going to be very relevant.
Absolutely. I think we had to discuss even some of the difficult topics in the classroom. Something very interesting has come from Pramila Kodwa. She has threatened me that you must ask my question only to Dr. Swati.
Oh.
So I take this threat very seriously. And Dr. Swati, the question is, online teaching is not for pre-primary.
Okay. So Pramila Kudwa is an ex-colleague, and that's why I think she wants to rag me on this webinar.
Okay.
And I take up the challenge. Who said online teaching is not for early years? Please show me some research which says that it is bad for them, because all the research that we have read on says that video chatting is absolutely good for emotional development of children. They are getting the serve return interactions that are most required for brain development. So I would say online classes are bad for preschool, but online interactions or a homeschool interaction, especially if the mother or father can also sit with the child and interact during the rhymes and story sessions. Don't you sit with your child and watch television programs, those ridiculous cartoons that come on all the TV channels. So instead of that, why not watch something healthy, which is coming on the screen from your school? So which means you are guaranteed about the content, the language, etc. And it is very important for children to see those little faces of the other children, because they are dying for some social development right now. They haven't seen their friends, etc. So I would always say what Mr. Khaitan said at the beginning: danger and opportunities. It's not always good to just harp on the danger. We must also look at the opportunities. So control and navigate the danger. We are all aware of the dangers of our screen time. So navigate those, but extend and nurture the opportunities. Because right now what we need to be there for the preschoolers is be a center of socio-emotional cognitive development, because they're missing out on those opportunities. And if they can get them on the screens, nothing like it. But as I said, please refer to the Early Childhood Association's blended learning manual. We have outlined everything right from the threats to the dangers, to the opportunities, to the safety, etc. And we've got a psychiatrist who has quoted in it. And we've got a developmental pediatrician who has also given the go-ahead in it. So no, online classes are not harmful for children as long as they are developmentally appropriate.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Swati. Kavita,
Yes.
When these children come to a school, they will have a lot of questions, ma'am questions, which only a ma'am can answer. And they will listen only to ma'am, So how are you going to prepare your teachers for that?
Okay. So I think the teachers themselves are equally excited about actually going back to work. So I don't think there's going to be a lot of preparation, but yeah, I think what I really actually are dreading is the social distancing. Because I looking at the teacher and the child, I know that they both are just going to go towards each other. And that's what my biggest worry is actually. So this ma'am question, the minute they look at the teacher, the sort of, I can see a lot of emotional tears. I mean, a lot of emotional feelings going to be welling up, even in our eyes also, when we see our children walking back to our school. So that's what I'm looking at. Actually, it's like, how do I actually make them socially distanced from each other? And the rest, I think the teachers are already going to take care of, because they're already doing it in the virtual classes.
Yeah, thank you. Sonia, I have a question for you. I have just missed the name of the person who asked, but it is a rather difficult question. You don't blame why I'm asking you this question. She said, with all the good work that teachers are doing, and the whole world knows it, and we need not say it ourselves, but still, there are some people who say that online teaching is not all that effective, and why there is so much of hype around it. How are you going to address questions like these? Difficult one?
Yeah, so we will have to look at the parameters of what is effective teaching and learning, right? I think
Absolutely.
that's something which we need to have a common framework to. So in these times, online times, what are the effective parameters of teaching and learning? Those, and as I mentioned, it's communication is the key between the teacher and the parent community to look at, because we will have to review our curriculum pointers. We will have to review our assessment pointers as well. See, I think we need to be a little more understanding towards this teaching team. We all, as somebody said, we were caught off ground. They are doing their best. They were not prepared for this.
Yeah.
And they have really risen up to the occasion. They've learned too many new technological skills, new apps. They're trying their best.
Absolutely.
So I don't see why it's not effective, because there's a complete good blend of synchronous as well as asynchronous learning happening. Teachers are putting up tasks, children are writing in, and teachers are giving feedback. In fact, teachers, I think, are working extra hours. I did not mention a case, but I must say that, we also have children from the economically weaker section, whom we call the neighborhood children. Because they have difficulty connecting during online classes, some of my teachers have taken extra classes in the evening at 5 and 6 in the evening just to meet their learning needs. So I think we should just have a proper definition and then just address it.
Commendable. Thank you very much. I think we are very, very slowly, but almost towards the end of the program. I will request my panelists to just hold their thoughts and come out with a 30-second closing remark about the whole thing. And I'm very sorry to those whose questions could not be taken. I believe FICCI Arise will take care of those questions in one way or the other. We have had a wonderful discussion. I will begin this time with Ravina. Could you please summarize, reflect, or preach us with a very simple thought in 30 seconds?
Very simple and no preaching, just sharing straight from the heart. These are dynamic times. We are all in it together. We've got to hold fort. We've got to plow ahead. There will be paralysis of action. There'll be days like that when we all get overwhelmed. I'm saying this because I saw a question also come up in this, what about us teachers, who's holding us? So it's okay. This time too shall pass and we'll emerge stronger and better. And alongside transparency, my summary would be that a lot is riding on integrity and sincerity. I'm sitting across the screen from children. There are 20 of them on the other side. I expect all to be paying attention. So these are skills. These are life skills which are being along the way built in children too. So that's the bit from me.
Thank you. Sonia.
I think we just need to redefine the parameters of learning and make it visible to all. These are very good times to look at personalized learning plans for our children. We should engage in that. And I think children increasingly are taking onus of their learning, and nothing can be better than that. So, yeah.
Great. Kavita.
Just say that all of us need to take the PDSA cycle very, very strongly now. Plan, do, study, act, continuously keep on reviewing ourselves, because we'll every now and then have to rise to the occasion.
Absolutely. Thank you. Dr. Swati.
Okay, so I have very few quick, 5 points. Number one, I think we have to mentally prepare ourselves for the model click, brick, click, which means we will be online, then we will have physical school, and then we will again go online. So please don't expect that when schools open, everything is going to be hunky-dory. So please mentally prepare all your plans, your parents, your students, everybody for the CBC, click, brick, click. Number two, collaboration and communication is what you require with your parents. You will have to build on that. if you haven't built on that in the past, this is the right time for you to build on it. Explain to them why the school is connecting with them online. Explain to them the benefits of their children's learning being non-stop. Number two, please focus on engagement and bonding with children, especially in the early years when you are choosing an online platform. Next is have a response protocol, which means when parents are facing connection issues, when parents are not happy with what you are doing for the children, what's your response protocol? Who is going to respond to them? Is it going to be only that poor teacher who's going to face the onslaught of all the questions, or do you have a response protocol? And my last point is, let's not forget the rural children. Let's not forget the children in our Anganwadis. And they are missing out on their midday meals, they are missing out on their inoculations, and they are missing out on their learning. So Early Childhood Association is now partnered with NGOs. We are helping do videos in languages, and it can be sent on WhatsApp to the parents who are interested. And my heart goes out to those who don't have Wi-Fi or don't have access to internet. I think the government should think of starting something on television for these littlest children, so that their engagement can also be kept in mind.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Swati. So thank you very much, all the panelists. Before I invite Vedant, I just like to summarize that we are into a hybrid world. So hybrid of online and in-person teaching, hybrid of school-parent collaboration, hybrid of cognitive and socio-emotional learning, hybrid of synchronous and asynchronous learning, hybrid of hope and optimism with the present challenges. So I think this is the crux of the whole discussion. I'm absolutely thrilled being in this august company. Thank you, Preeti. You are right now on the screen. May I invite very young and bright chairperson, Northern FICCI Arise, Mr. Vedant Khetan, to propose a vote of thanks.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pandey. That was an absolutely incredible session. And thank you so much to all the panelists that are here. Ms. Sangvi, Ms. Vats, Ms. Singh, Ms. Mavani, you all were really, really amazing. And I think you've given us a lot to chew on. I, for one, I'm going to have sleepless nights. I think we thought we were prepared, but I think we got to go back to the drawing board after hearing you guys, So thank you from the bottom of my heart for such lovely insights that all of you have shared with our lovely audience over here. And I would especially like to thank Ms. Preeti Hingurani, who represents Cambridge University Press in making this webinar series possible. This was a series of, this was a tri-series that we had. And this particular session was the last of it. I would request her to please come in just for some last words to wrap up this enriching session. Over to you.
Thank you, Vedant. Thank you, Dr. Pandey. It's been an amazing session, and thank you to all my dear panelists. Many of them I know so well. Many of you are friends, and we will be friends going forward. It's been an amazing 26 odd days. If I was to look back when we started, and it has been schools post-lockdown. We've today talked about classrooms post-lockdown, from primary to senior secondary, and given really good tips to teachers. I hope it's been beneficial for all the teachers who have tuned in. From a Cambridge perspective, I will definitely say these practical insights that we have gathered in these sessions are nothing less than a gold mine. This is what goes with us and gets developed into different forms and will certainly come back to you. So I would not, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I would say that this would not have been possible without the ever impactful and timely initiatives of FICCI Arise under the leadership of Shobha ma'am. My sincere gratitude to her. And sharing of so much of intellectual capital by all FICCI Arise members. There are so many names that I would really want to thank, and all the panelists who have joined us all through these 3 sessions. While there are faces that have been visible, we know that nothing is a success without a great team working at the back end. Please allow me to thank Samreen for all her continuous efforts, Malika and Ridhima from Cambridge, and of course, Ravi and Vinayji, who have been managing all the back end. Cambridge is a friend to FICCI Arise, and while this tri-series comes to an end, I'm sure we will be coming back together again to have some very interesting discussions, Till then, we invite you to join us on Cambridge Teachers of Tomorrow. There was a question which Ravina took up and said, teachers are asking, so who's holding us in this time? My reply to that is, as Cambridge Teachers of Tomorrow, here we are a community where we connect, share, and learn from peers. We also try and spruce it up with certain topics which are really of interest. One thing that has been consistently coming up is the mental well-being of teachers. I think the first session that we will take up in your community, which is Cambridge Teachers of Tomorrow, will be talking about mental well-being of teachers to start with. I invite you to join here, and it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. I will thank Aruna, who's really been helping in putting all this together. Thank you.
Yeah, Arnav, can you come on the screen, please? And we can have a group photograph. Arnav, come on the screen. And let's have a group photograph. Yeah, lovely. Oh, that's amazing. Amazing. Thank you, viewers, for your support, patience, perseverance. You have been amazing. Thank you very much.
Dr. Pandey, I'll just take one more second, and I would just like to thank you, Dr. Pandey, for being the moderator for this session. And
Thank
it's you really held the entire, the whole session together. And I think you asked some pertinent questions, and the way you round up the entire crux of the discussion was absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for that, Dr. Pandey. I would also like to thank Mr. Ravi Santlani of School News, who's given us the entire tech support and the logistics for this event. A very, very heartfelt thank you to you. And of course, last but not the least, the team of FICCI Arise, Ms. Shobha Mishra Ghosh, who's the Assistant Secretary General of FICCI, for overseeing and being the torchbearer of FICCI Arise since its inception. And many thanks to Samreen Gauri for working behind the scenes and for making this webinar and all the other series that we've been holding possible. And Preeti, for sure, we're going to hold you to this. We are going to come back together online with Cambridge and hold many more such sessions. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.